Welcome to the Ignite CDA board meeting for August 18th. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If everybody could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Okay, now's the time for public comment. Is there any public comment? Thank you, Troy.
Good evening, Ignite, or late afternoon, board members. Troy Tymason, City of Coeur d'Alene. I am here to thank you for a great amount of work that you do and simultaneously share with you an award that the city received. Association of Idaho Cities is a group that we are members of. And on your behalf and on the city's behalf, we put together a application to them and received an award. So I'm here to present that to you and, of course, share with you pictures that you get to see frequently that we want the public to see as we address this great park that is out there. So I want to thank you for all the work that's going on. There'll be more information on this tonight. You were recognized in the state of Idaho. It's tough competition. The city actually received 2 awards this year, which doesn't happen very often because there's 200 cities across this great state, and there's only about 15 awards given out. So it is a high-ranking award, and we couldn't be more pleased to receive it. And in appreciation, we'll let you have it for a while or something like that, so you can display it on the wall, Mr. Burns, and shine it up for us, and then we'll share it back and forth. So all the work that you do is greatly appreciated. What great public space we have, thanks to you, and you've been recognized by the state and our other sister cities. So that was my public comment to you.
Thanks.
So what exactly does that plaque say? I can't read it from here.
Garrett Nancolis City of Achievement Award presented to City of Coeur d'Alene in collaboration with Ignite on a project known as the Atlas Waterfront Park. So your Parks and Recreation Department put together the application. It was looked at by a group of individuals, and you're a winner. So I'll give it to Tony to put on his wall. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy.
Thank you for that submittal. Maybe we could take a picture of it and put it on the website next to the Atlas District.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Okay, any other public comment? Seeing none, we do have an amendment to the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to move up the Sherman Square Park, since we have a lot of constituents for that. We'll move it up right below the Dowell presentation. Do I need a motion?
motion?
I need a
Oh.
motion.
I'll so move.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moving right along. So is there any discussion on that? No? We'll have Dowell Engineers come up.
We need
and-
to vote.
Oh, did we? Yeah.
We'll keep you in line.
Entertain.
We'll keep you in line,
Thank
don't
you.
worry.
I'm just trying, you had to get out of here, didn't you?
I do. You're new at this.
Okay,
You want to call for a vote?
call for a vote.
Aye.
I know Sarah will definitely have a motion for this.
Oh, we already moved and seconded.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Seeing none?
On Zoom.
Yeah, we
I
have
didn't see
a
anybody.
couple
I was
people on
looking up
Zoom,
there.
don't we, Tony?
We have 3 of your distinguished colleague board members on.
Better
Zoom.
let.
They're not
We can
voting.
They must be off video.
I said yes.
Okay,
Now we know we have to be quiet.
now we have to give them an opportunity. So now we will have Dowell Engineers come up to present on the Health Corridor Traffic Study Update.
Afternoon, board members. Let's see. Someone else is moving the mouse. 1 second. There we go. So the last time we were here was in June.
Can you please state your name?
Yeah,
for-
Adam Miles with Dow Engineering. And the last time we were here was in June, and we gave you a brief presentation on the existing and some of the future conditions analysis. And today we'll kind of briefly overview that stuff again, just to refresh your memory, and then get into some of the implementation plan items that we've worked on since then. So again, project background, the Health Corridor Master Plan was completed in September of 2019, was adopted by Coeur d'Alene City Council in November 2019, and it had some proposed mobility improvements in the plan, but it needed further refinement and traffic analysis, and that's what this project was intended to do. So the goal of this project was to review the existing needs of the health corridor, as well as look at future transportation needs to accommodate the future development anticipated, both in the background as time goes on, but also by the master plan itself. And then develop an implementation plan for those future transportation needs once we had identified them. That's the project study area. And as we had talked about last time in June, COVID-19 really impacted the ability to collect new traffic counts. So we relied mostly on previous traffic counting efforts that have been done before, and then use some of the big data sources out there which track cell phone, mobile app type data, as well as Bluetooth data from the GPS in your cars to fill in the gaps in the data picture that we had. We then looked at short-term solutions based on the existing conditions. That included signal timing updates along Northwest Boulevard and US 95, and we also identified some need for access management along Appleway due to the collision rates being higher than the statewide average. From the big data analysis, we were able to look at origins and destinations for the health corridor. And as you can see, like we mentioned last time, predominantly traffic is coming to and from the health corridor from the west, either through I-90 or Celtice Way, and it's coming from the north predominantly through Ramsey Road or US 95. The locations where those people are going within the health corridor or leaving from, as you can expect, it's the Kootenai Health Campus as well as the Interlake facility. The one thing to note was and we mentioned this last time, was the change in the PM peak. So we have about 8% of health corridor traffic is coming to and from the Ironwood shopping center there, and in the PM, it jumps up to about 19% of overall health corridor traffic. And so it's that mixture that the hospital is letting off staff, and a lot of people are going home from the office parks in that area, and that's conflicting directly with the shopping center, which is just getting going from people getting their groceries in the evening and things of that nature. And so that creates a real nexus of issues along US 95. So we went into our future conditions analysis, and some of the key points that were takeaways from that analysis is that additional capacity improvements beyond those that are already in a lot of the master plans that are out there will be needed in the next 20 years to bring the health corridor to a passing grade. The health corridor master plan improvements addressed the concerns in the immediate vicinity of the health corridor, but did not address the congestion created just by background growth along the major corridors. Some of the major improvements that we analyzed as part of scenario 1, 2, and 3, such as the Julius Street overpass and frontage roads from Northwest Boulevard to that Julius Street overpass, as well as an interchange upgrade at Northwest Boulevard, significantly reduced the congestion within the health corridor. So just as a brief reminder, the no build condition was the first one we looked at, and this is just the existing development pattern as documented in CAMPIO's future forecast. We also incorporated some of the known projects that are being developed, so that includes the I-90 third lane widening, currently under analysis by ITD, as well as the US 95 interchange upgrade, which is already in some of the future plans. In conjunction with upgrading that interchange, there will also be some widening that's necessary on US 95 from Niter to Ironwood. Obviously, we have the Atlas Mill development, and then the La Crosse connector with traffic signals currently under construction by the city of Coeur d'Alene. So that led to looking at the elements the master plan introduced, and those include a local access road north of Ironwood that helps parcels circulate without needing to go onto Ironwood Drive. It included a Howard Street overpass, a new signal at the Ironwood Drive, Lakewood Drive intersection, and then a local access road on the southern blocks to help with circulation for those parcels as well, again to alleviate pressure on Ironwood Drive to be the main conduit between. Even include a crossover from Julia to Howard to the north so that people can have a new north-south connection from the Riverstone development all the way north, eventually leading to Kathleen. We retained the local access road on the southern blocks for circulation, and to help with operations and safety, we proposed medians on Northwest Boulevard and US 9. It has a failure versus not failure. We also looked at congestion in all three scenarios, and we consistently saw overall congestion or people waiting in line to be served by the signal reduced at all the signals within the corridor. So the next task and what's new in this presentation is going over the implementation plan. Our goal was to take the projects which we had looked at in the future conditions analysis and then phase those into a plan. These phases line up with what was approved in the Health Corridor Master Plan, just so that we're all talking in the same context of years and time frame. The preliminary projects are in orange, so you can see we have the Ironwood Drive access consolidation taking place as soon as parcels start to redevelop. We have project number 2 in the preliminary phase. That's the La Crosse connector that's going in right now. And then we have a lot that are in this early phase that are between 3 to 7 years out. And then a couple additional projects in the midterm, so that would be the Hutter Corridor to the west, the pole line connector to the north, and then this Julia Street overpass with extensions. And then we have the frontage roads in the late phase, that'd be beyond the 15-year horizon. And so when we break those out and we look at the cost estimates, again, the Ironwood Drive access consolidation, we're assuming that that happens in conjunction with redevelopment and just making sure that developers are aware that the high carry forward. And then we have the Northwest Boulevard interchange capacity improvements. Those were mostly widening of the existing ramps, so hence the $8.9 million cost. And then the US 95 widening and the Ironwood Drive capacity improvements we're assuming kind of happen in tandem with the US 95 interchange upgrade, which when we priced out the current plans, it's about $86.6 million, and the Julia Street overpass comes in at about $16.9 million with the frontage roads in the late phase at about $6. So I know that's a lot of dollar numbers thrown at you. Do you guys have any questions about the phasing or comments on the implementation plan?
I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
What's the funding on the 95 upgrade there's 86 million.
Right.
How much of that is state? Or do we know yet?
So we're not identifying the source of the funding right now. We're
Think
just
that's what it is?
identifying, you know, we've got to look at that as part of this.
Okay, thank you. Dan, did you have something? No. Anybody else? Any questions for Dowell?
Not for me.
Well, thank you for the update.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Now up, do we have somebody from Rotary to talk about the Sherman Square Park?
Good afternoon, Ignite Board. I'm Jody Azevedo, and I am the co-chair for our President's Council for the Coeur d'Alene Rotary Club, which is heading up our Centennial Project, also known as Sherman Park. Joining me this evening is John Young, who is the co-chair of our Design Committee, and then Claudia Brennan, who is our current Rotary President. And we would like to present to you the design of the park and answer any questions. And we also have John Mueller somewhere in here who will be running that. And I'll bring up John Young and have him walk you through.
Good afternoon. I'm John Young, and like Jody said, I'm the co-chair of the design committee for this project. And I'm going to actually introduce the master here, Mr. Mueller, to go ahead and show us what we're doing, and then I'll answer questions about budget and timing. Thank you.
Let's see if we can get this interfaced with Zoom here, guys. We see that okay, everybody? I want to, oh, come on, John. Let's see what we can do. Okay, Madam Chair, members of the board, hello, I'm John Mueller. For all us long-timers in this town, we remember what this site used to be many moons ago. The Woolworth site, classic place where a lot of us used to hang out as kids, and in 1980 we had a fire and we lost the store, and we ended up with a cosmic hole in the ground, and a group of folks, Tom Robb, the Johnston brothers, and Mike Patano, kind of put together a volunteer effort to see what we could do. This was pre-Sherman Avenue project, and so we filled in the hole. We created this little space and also kind of projected some opportunities about what the downtown could be like. A lot of people looked at this and said, wow, we should do a street project. And Brad, you know, the Sherman project came next, and the Lakeside, and then on and on. We did fill the hole up. The National Guard took some excess soil from the fairgrounds, and we had a party of trucks taking this forward. And so after 30 years, or so of use. Fortunately, the club has stepped forward and partnered with you guys, and you know all about that in terms of the acquisition and to take the next step. And so we have been working with the group for almost 2 months to develop a design for you to hear and talk about today. And it just sort of didn't fall out of the sky. We did spend some time initially in some visual preference, asking them questions about pieces and parts, what they might like to see as part of their contribution to this park, how we might, if we were to do water or water feature, what that would look like, what kind of volume, what scale, places to sit, treatments with pavement, those kinds of things, lighting, and then other special treatments. And so we've had a lot of fun in talking about that. We did have a brief process where we talked about opportunities and constraints, drew some conclusions, took those conclusions and presented 3 different kind of design expressions to talk about. Again, trying to bring all those use areas and then perhaps some new considerations for use forward in the designs. And we sort of landed on this concept 3, which we further refined to create kind of this multi-use pocket park plaza to take forward for development. The design features and kind of an extension or pushing out into the street, where we're going to propose eliminating 2 to 3 parking spaces. I think one of the things that came out of our discussions early on was we wanted to be able to bring people up to and through the park, not up to and in the park. And so by projecting out to the street, we wanted to create a stronger presence and create more seating and more pedestrian space and more multi-use space as well. But the design expression is based on these, I guess, intersecting arcs that symbolically represent that rotary wheel in action. And all the good things that it does in the community and other communities in America and internationally as well. And so This project features just a series of multi-use spaces. Also has a central timeline, which I'll talk about in a minute, which is a series of medallions that represent projects that the club has done over time. A larger activities plaza with a water wall that is both water feature, but also a background screen. And then continuation of certain existing uses and creation of hard surfaced or hard surfacing for better resiliency and wear into the future. Let's see here. Obviously, the main feature I talked about, the water wall, is intended to be both sculptural element and water feature. It will be low volume, and if you think about perhaps the K27 project, that is about 1,250 gallons a minute. This is only going to be in the range of 100 gallons a minute, where we're barely kind of washing the wall. If I could kind of show you a design expression, it's going to look something more like this wall that you see in the lower right-hand corner. And so the water feature can be turned on and used, or turned off and not used, but the way in which we cast the concrete will create this rough textured wall, and so it'll have this sculptural element. The height of the wall was kind of set up to block foreground and middle ground views back to the alley and the parking lot behind. But because of the height of the wall at 6 feet, we'll still see that lake behind it and the mountains beyond. And so there was a lot of discussion about the importance of that. And strangely enough, as we finished up and got to that, we also heard that there's perhaps a project that may build a larger building there that'll block all that view anyway. So nonetheless, we want to ring the back of the project with trees and kind of, again, create the opportunity to expand activities and use, formal scheduled use, but also informal activities as well. One of the neat things about the project is there'll be some subtle embedded kind of features from the club and the history of the club. The very first project the club did was 100 years ago when they came in and developed the fields at Memorial Field. Not the grandstands, but the fields. That was their very first project in the 1921-22 era. And since that time, the club has done a lot for this community. And so they're busy about the business of doing the research of all the projects that they have done. And they want to have cast these bronze medallions. And looking at our design, I'll go to this view. We have this center line of these intersecting walks, and we intend to come in and core those and place those medallions sequentially down through time that will identify each one of those projects. And in that way, they'll kind of commemorate the work that they've done and their commitment to the community. I kind of prepared this exhibit just for them to look at and to talk about if they wanted to expand use. You could actually now, with the hard surface and some of the other things we're doing with the infrastructure to the site, you could actually schedule their own club meetings and set up tables and have an event there if you wanted to. And so that's kind of the fun part of this, is to see the new and expanded uses that will come about as a result of this. The surfacing is concrete or colored concrete or textured, colored, and cut concrete, just to create interest and use and kind of amp up the fit and finish, if you will. And so what follows are a series of images just to kind of show you what the park looks like. If you were standing across the street, maybe on one of the upper floors of that Wicket building on the corner, obviously from a sidewalk across the street, you can see, actually I'll go back, you can kind of see the impact here of how we push this out into the street and make use of those parking spaces to expand maybe seating opportunities and allow people to kind of walk up and you're in the park. As you would walk up the sidewalk from the west, looking in, you can kind of see these arc lines and cut score joints, and also the placement of the medallions. And so this kind of gives you an idea of how the space will change, but also maybe the opportunities for special events. we think that they can continue to say, perhaps have the summer concert series as it is now, and but also maybe a little more sound and secure seating, perhaps in terms of if you wanted to bring a chair or something else. So with that, we'll close with this image, and then I will go to, we'll thank the folks at Architects West, Jenny Gibson, who also, let me just see here, get out of this if I could. And Jenny also prepared this animation for us to look at, so you kind of get a real-time walk through the park. And this will really actually give you a chance to actually walk the sidewalks or walk the plaza and take a look at it real-time scale and how the spaces will work and what the park will look like. Get an idea of the views out behind before we see a new project there. And the benches are intended to be both bench and out towards the street, traffic control or access control to kind of prevent that age-old North Idaho off-roading proclivity that sometimes people have. They can be picked up and moved around if we have to adjust, but we're trying to anticipate certain things. The existing street trees and the existing plums down there, or flowering plums, will be saved, and we will add new trees as shown. So with that, that's sort of the overall look at the project, what we're proposing. Have prepared a cost estimate and given it to John, and so if you have questions about it or want to talk more, certainly we can do that if you want.
Any questions?
Well, I like that concept of the wings kind of coming out of the walkways and things, and then I see where it kind of goes over, it looks like in front of the adjoining properties, but is all of that space, is that city, or are there any other decision makers that you'd have to negotiate with neighbors to be able to access that?
Well, everything we're doing is in the public right-of-way.
Okay.
And so we're just replacing some existing walks and kind of, again, drawing that park and plaza down the street a little bit. And so I'm sure there's further discussion that we can have if there's concern. We're sort of at this time working through the process with the Park and Recreation Commission and hope to get back to see you folks at the council for some final stamp of approval. But that is the intent, yes.
Well, again, I like that. I'm sure some will have some point of view about giving up parking spaces, but if you were going to ever do it, this looks like a good one, so.
So I guess the Parks Department would maintain the water wall?
Yeah,
And they're okay
and I
with
think
that?
we're, there's, the intent is that this, obviously, you guys know you jointly purchased this with the club, and this will be turned over to the city for as part of their park system, and Parks will take over the maintenance. And so we've been in discussion with Bill. Bill expressed some concerns about what is it, how big is it,
That's what I
obviously. And the unique thing about this, and the club talked at length about keeping the scale of water and the amount of water very small, just because of all the things you can imagine that happen to fountains. The neat thing about this water wall is you can shut the water off, just like if you bought a small, intimate water feature at one of the box stores and brought it home, set it up on your patio and turned the switch and the water runs and you hear the sound and you see the water move. Just as you would shut that off, you could shut this off, the water would be stored and it becomes a sculptural screen wall. And that was sort of the intent, was to not make this a feature that required a lot of attention, that would be easy to manage and handle.
Yeah, I guess as this moves forward, it probably would be, with the approval of the Parks Department. You have to, I'm sure you'll have something worked out
Actually,
with.
we saw them Monday night, and so we
Oh,
have
yeah.
more discussion scheduled with them.
And then there could still be live music
Yes,
So the way this will be set up, it'll be set up for live music again
yes.
in that event, and there could be other community events there and so forth. Right, okay. And those medallions that you showed in there, are they, I know some are rotary medallions, are they, but are there some of the other ones just decorative medallions along the sidewalk, or?
No, there were round tree grates. Obviously, we're kind of projecting this design expression out. We're replacing the classic old ones we had on the original Sherman project in this location. But since everything is sort of set up, the circles that you saw were a graphic representation of those medallions.
Yeah, the rotary.
Yeah.
So they're the rotary medallions, okay.
You want me to go back here? Let me just see what I can do here. How about we take this forward?
There's a picture of the old steam plant back there, too.
Well, let's use this guy right here. What you see here, obviously, see if I can get the cursor to work here, not jump around. Obviously, what you see, if you can follow the cursor along the center line of the walkway, the smaller circles are those medallions.
Right, I
and
saw a
then they
couple
all
different angles.
Then they all intersect at a large 5-foot cast bronze rotary wheel.
Okay.
So neglected to mention that. Sorry, Brad.
So,
right.
John, just out of curiosity, if they only have 50 projects, would they just be spaced out further, or, you know, I mean, because it's a silly question, but there's a bunch of dots on there, and I'm guessing that that's not necessarily equal to a list of projects that Rotary's come up with. So,
I think what I was told was there was like 200 projects.
wow, okay.
And so it may be that I don't have enough circles.
Okay, okay. That
We'll
was
see as we take it forward to
Pure
final construction tonight. Good question, though.
pure curiosity.
John, do you want to just
John,
touch
Jim
on-
Chapkus here. I had a question. Would the benches have to be removed on the on the sidewalk for snow removal each year? And if so, who would do that?
Well, if you want to remove the benches, they are being designed in a way that you can come in and pick them up easily with a small piece of equipment, a loader, like a Bobcat loader, or a Bobcat with I guess the bucket taken off the front and a forklift put on with a series of straps just picked up and moved if you want to. And so my guess is that that would have to be some joint operation between parks and downtown and streets if that is a concern.
It was, and they have to plow those sidewalks. They take a Kubota down the sidewalk with a bucket in the winter when it's bad. And I was just curious.
John, do you want to touch on the lighting?
There are two kinds of lighting that are proposed for the project. You can't really see it, but moving around, there are a series of small, really intense dots here in multiple locations. The intent is to have overhead pedestrian type lighting like we have in the downtown street to light this, to make this a safe space. And so we're kind of in discussion about which light pole base we might use, whether we match up with Sherman, or whether we do something that maybe it matches up with McEwen, or something maybe more classic like was done with the Memorial Field project, mostly for consistency. In replacement, the city obviously has some extras sourced for that, and so in the discussion being, you do that and keep their efforts for replacement if necessary simple, or do you come in with a completely new fixture and add one more to the mix? So there's some discussion related to that, but the intent is to have this space a safe space and well lit. The second piece of the lighting application on this project is to do a lower level, low voltage lighting, much like we did on the K27, where we're washing like the face of the water wall, uplighting trees, doing some things like that. There will be some minor messaging about the club in the park, so I'm assuming we'll do some of that as well. And so that will be on a separate system, and much like with the K27, you'll be able to program this lighting for festival lighting, different colors, different times of the year, and have a little fun with that as well.
Madam Chairman, I just make a real quick comment here. As far as this new design that that goes out into the street and takes the parking spots. I'm not taking a stand for or against that, but over the course of time since we, started the downtown revitalization projects back in the 80s, I've had the opportunity to, talk with quite a few different urban designers, and what I think most of them would say, and what I've heard them say at different times, is if you lose, 2 or 3 parking spots here and there, in the design of the downtown, it's okay. But you don't want to go and start wholesale taking parking away from the street. And that's been ever since this started back in the 1980s, that's been a very important part of this downtown, is to keep the parking, because it's frustrating to people if they can't find parking. So going along with that, it looks like maybe 3 parking spots. Losing those is probably not that big of a thing, and I'm not worried legally about the city setting a precedent by doing that. But I just say, I don't want this to start like encouraging other people where someone has a building or a project in different areas of the downtown, and they'd like to start doing this to where we start having several of these things happen downtown. I think we have to look at this, and you're on the council, you can tell me what you think, but I think we have to look at this as a special legacy project, and this isn't the kind of thing where people should be encouraged to start trying to do designs where they go across the sidewalk and take the parking out, because I think if you start doing a lot of this, it'll be detrimental to the downtown. Probably won't be a big thing with these parking spots, but you don't want to have this start to be a habit downtown.
Well, I would just say, since you asked, that on one hand, yes, I think you have to kind of be cautious about that, but like so many other items, I would find there would be a whole lot of folks that would say, oh, that's wonderful. That's the first step towards making Sherman Avenue a really pedestrian. So there are folks all over the map on what they'd like to see. But this, again, I think this is a very targeted, and I think, and we'll see. But I think there's good justification that really ties it in, but I don't think it'll go unnoticed, so it'll be a decision point along the way.
Right. Yeah, and I've heard some people talking about how nice a pedestrian mall would be downtown, and it looks great when you're at the street fair or art walk or something. It's like, wow, this would be neat to do this. But I know when we did our projects in the late 80s, the designers were saying, man, I know you're kind of depressed with the state of your downtown and you're wanting to revitalize it. One good thing is you haven't put a pedestrian mall in, because we're doing a lot of projects where they don't even have the pedestrian mall paid for yet, and they're having to tear it out and put the traffic back in because it destroyed the business downtown. And I'm not saying a pedestrian mall, while you're on the subject, doesn't work, but I am saying you probably got a 90% chance it won't work. The odds are against it. But anyway, the thing they found is having traffic and people and access around the downtown, is what really works for the businesses. So anyway, I guess that was my 2 cents on it. I've been involved in the downtown with a number of other people for a long time, and this is a nice park here. I just, get concerned when we, take parking off the street and so forth. So this isn't going to matter as long as you don't start getting a lot of requests for it and so forth.
And just one final point on that. A few years ago they did kind of a trial project out on East Sherman and kind of extended the way a little bit, and that, I think that's gotten some favorable response. So again, we'll see. Maybe some kind of a mix of things, but anyway, I for one like that initial look. So
Thank you.
Well, and that's a good example on East Sherman, but there's just one thing. If you started having another one here and another one here and another one here, I think you might get different opinions on it. But yeah, I agree. That one on East Sherman in itself, it isn't a bad deal there. So, as a side note, when they were putting this park, the original park in, I recall Don Johnston or somebody telling me that they got those light posts. They were surplus from University of Idaho. Someone told me that.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. They were doing a lighting project down there at that time, and I said to Don, "What you ought to do is run down, take a look, go out to the boneyard," and he ran down with a trailer and came back with 8 lights.
Yeah, Don was good at that kind of stuff.
Sandblasted them, painted them up, stood them up, and they've worked terrific for the last 30 years.
Don Johnston is a great citizen, yeah, he's good at that kind of thing.
So-
I don't know what's going to happen to those, but hopefully they don't get thrown away.
Well, we have talked about actually turning them over to the city so they can use them maybe, if they want, in the East Sherman Park, so.
Yeah, possibly there's a use somewhere for them.
Any other questions for John?
Other questions for John or John?
Or, yeah, Mr. Young, do you had some information that you wanted to share, or no? Or just questions?
Unless you guys have questions, I'm good.
Okay.
Tony, we do need to discuss the deed restriction, though, is that correct?
Right. What I'd like to share with you today is I was going to talk about the deed restricted language that we proposed, but there's still conversation about certain terms within that deed restriction language section that I'll be bringing back to you probably in September, along with a MOU. So there is a memorandum of understanding being drafted between the Rotary Club, the City of Coeur d'Alene, and Ignite CDA that kind of encompasses the entire project and transfer, and the deed restricted language will be part of that MOU. So my plan is to bring the fully approved MOU to the board in September for your consideration. So with that said, this is an action item. If the board would like to accept and approve the park concept as presented, you have that ability today, if you so choose.
And I will say, as a member of the board, or of Rotary, and so is Tony, that this was unanimously approved by the Rotary Club, so it's been thoroughly vetted by the Rotary Club.
So just
Has it been thoroughly vetted by the businesses on Sherman?
What?
Can you
said
say
it's
that?
thoroughly vetted by the businesses on Sherman.
Oh,
John, you've spent some time, you might want to talk to that.
To answer your question, we did talk to several of the businesses. Matter of fact, my first person I met with was Mayor Woodmeyer, whose wife owns a business in that immediate area. Talked to Steve, talked to some of the other business people, talked to the executive director of the Downtown Business Association. And all in all, they were all very positive about what this is. I mean, one point that was brought up over and over again is we're all concerned about parking in Coeur d'Alene. We remember when there was no parking, but through Ignite, you guys have invested, gosh, what, $20 million in parking structures in downtown Coeur d'Alene? And I bet you could find more parking right now than you could 5 years ago. So even though it's lost on Sherman Avenue, it seemed like adding this amenity to Coeur d'Alene was a very positive thing for the people we talked to. Thank you.
thank you. Commissioner Garcia?
So my question was that if we accept the design concept as presented this evening, then it goes to the city, right? And the city has to go through their due diligence on it before is there a step like that or not?
Right, so my understanding is that the Rotary Board has accepted the concept that you've seen. Next step is for you, the Ignite Board, to kind of look at it, and if you like the concept and you approve it, then it goes to City Council,
Okay.
along with the MOU. So we're kind of a little out of sequence here because we thought the MOU would be complete by this time, but so we're just a little out of sequence, but that's the process.
Well, and it just seems to me that having that city, the reason I asked is that extra city element will also help with the concern that Brad had about the parking and the encroachment, because if it's not, the city can make that choice about how they move forward with
Right.
allowing that or not allowing that. So I just wanted to understand. Thank
Do you
you.
want to step up?
Yeah, that'll have to go to the council, anything like that.
So the process right now, we went to the Parks and Rec Commission on Monday, and they asked us to go ahead and work with the director, with Bill Greenwood, and come back at the next meeting to actually have it included as a public hearing item and an action item at that time for approval. From that point, with a positive approval from the Parks and Rec Commission, it will go to the City Council for a vote.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
So I would make a motion that we, as a board, approve the design of the Rotary Pocket Park.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Opposed?
Is
Okay.
that an opposed?
That was
Is that
an
an
opposed?
opposed?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I'd like
Commissioner
more
Trepkis?
research done on it with the retailers.
Can you say that again, Commissioner Chapkus?
I'd like to see a little more research done communicating with the retailers. I've spoken to a couple that didn't even know this was happening, and that concerns me a little bit.
Okay,
Well, they'll have the time between now and city council.
yeah.
So, Madam Chairman, I don't know, I thought there was going to be discussion before the vote, but I'm fine with the vote. I was just going to say, and as a point of clarification, I'm not that worried about these 3 parking spots, but my point is, just don't go doing this a half a dozen times downtown. That's the main thing, or you take away the opportunity for someone to find a quick parking spot and pull into a business. But as I said, just, a legacy project like this, 3 spots isn't a big deal in the whole scheme of things. We have added a lot of spots. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on. Call a public meeting to order for a budget hearing for the Ignite CDA fiscal year 2021 amended budget. Any public comment?
Boy, there's an echo tonight, isn't there?
There is.
There's an echo.
Jeff, can you pull up my budget slide deck, please?
It's always tough to talk when you hear yourself echoing.
It is.
Don't talk.
Thank you.
That's coming back from the Zoom feed. Nothing we can do about it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. So just to kind of give a little bit of overview of the amended budget here, nothing has changed on this amended budget from the July presentation that we went through kind of in detail, other than in the Lake District, where we incorporated some modifications on the lacrosse project, where, if you recall, we had most of the funding being spent in fiscal year 2021, with about $360,000 being pushed into fiscal year 2022. That has changed a bit now that we're going to be pushing $1.25 million into FY22 because of issues associated with the project. And we do have in the presence tonight a couple folks that I think can speak to that for the board as to why we need to shift those funds into the next fiscal year. So.
Hi, everybody. Matt Gillis, Welch Comer Engineers. Just to be clear, the project's going fine. We're running into some supply chain issues, which, if you've tried to buy toilet paper, you know what I'm speaking of.
I've heard of those.
Yes. So the project started off with, we intended on being awarded, constructed, and completed by middle of September, actually beginning of September. But when we run into things like we can't get items that have metal in them, so water fittings and manhole covers and catch basin grates and rebar that's in all of our concrete, those are critical to constructing critical items that can help us build the road and move on with the project. So Tony and I have been working together and with the contractor to forecast as best we can how much of that budget needs to be moved into next year. Things will become clearer and clearer as we get more information from the suppliers, but that's the reason of the request to move that funding.
Has the cost changed?
No, the cost hasn't changed.
Thank you. Does anybody have any comments?
I'm sorry?
Questions for Matt Gillis?
No.
Any other public comment?
Yeah, so if there's no other public comment, you can close the hearing, and then the board can discuss, and then we can move to the resolution if the board so chooses.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing, and any board discussion on the amended budget? No?
I move that we accept the resolution for the 21-03 adoption of the 2021 budget.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I guess it'd be the 2022 budget, wouldn't it? I'm sorry.
We'll do a roll
It's
call here.
2021.
2021, I'm sorry, you're right, yep.
Oh, it's a roll call?
Yep.
We'll do a roll call. Mandel?
Yes.
Widmeyer?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Metz?
Yes.
Chapkus?
Yes.
Harmon?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the next item would be a public hearing on the FY22 budget. So if you could call that hearing
I'll
to
call,
order.
call the budget hearing, fiscal year 2022 budget, fiscal year budget to order.
And I'll kind of
Did
give
you
a
wanna-
brief overview of this. Jeff, I don't have my mouse out here to scroll down. Can you move that down to the next page for me? Thank you, sir. So once again, this proposed FY22 budget has not changed from what you saw in the July meeting where we went through it in detail, other than we moved the lacrosse project improvements into the Lake District. So that $1.25 million was moved into next year's fiscal spending. So that has been modified for the Lake District in FY22.
Do we have any public comment for the 2022 budget? Mr. Tymeson.
Good day. I'd like to share with you why I'm here on behalf of the city and seek your consideration for special projects at the city of Coeur d'Alene. In this last legislative session, a bill came up that moved rapidly through the House and into the Senate. It references House Bill 389. It really changed the funding for municipalities in the state of Idaho. When we were looking at the bill as a city, they were stating that we would take urban renewal district closures and they would be reduced by 20%. 80% would be made available to the taxing entities. So in this bill, it automatically sends money back to the constituents. And I would suggest to you that our council was going to do that anyway, and that's the right thing to do. We were going to look at our needs. We've been working with the Lake District for as long as any urban renewal district will ever be alive because they've shortened up the length of its life. And we have been forecasting for a few years, looking at the closure of the Lake District for monies to come to the city for services we've been providing there. This bill also put in a regulator on the amount of money that a city can take. When we say that we're going to increase property taxes by 3%, that's the maximum that we can take over our budget. That doesn't mean that any individual taxpayer's taxes are going to go up because it's based on what your assessed valuation is. We also can take something called new growth. That's a separate entity. The challenge with this piece of legislation is that the only way for an urban renewal district's valuation increase is for it to come over as new growth. The legislature, in my opinion, did not contemplate the fact that 80% of this urban renewal district closing, and the Lake District is a large group of properties, is going to be a significant amount of money for all the taxing entities. When you put another governor on that, it really impacts the city of Coeur d'Alene. So there's probably $3+ million in what we would call new growth coming over from this established district. We will not be able to take anywhere near that because we're going to be limited by 8% of what we're currently taking in property taxes. So if our city grows by $400,000, we won't be able to take that because we'll be governed by an 8%. I'm forecasting about $1,400,000 is the maximum, as we understand the legislation today, as confirmed by the State Tax Commission. Well, we did $600,000-$700,000 in new growth in 06, 07, 08 when we were growing. So as we look at next year, the city of Coeur d'Alene was forecasting a significant dollar opportunity for our electeds to approve. And right now, we believe it's at least $1 million that we won't even be able to access. I'll give you a caveat because it's all for your consideration. Legislation would help clean this up, but I don't know and I cannot guarantee that the legislation will get done this year that says, okay, you can have the 80% from an urban renewal district closing, that's one bucket of money, and you can look at that, and the 8% applies to foregone, applies to new growth, and would apply to the 3% you could take. That's the way the legislation was discussed. all of the discussion was separating that. But of course, when I give you this scenario, I hope you can understand that as it comes over, that's the only way for an urban renewal district's property taxes is to come over as new growth. So we had separated that, and we missed it. So did every other city as that piece of legislation flew through in about a day and a half. Very, very, very late in the session. So that's the backdrop for the city coming forward this late saying, you've been great stewards. There appears to be dollars left over. We have some needs that we were anticipating could be funded, and now it doesn't look like we'll have that funding availability. So I've worked with the director and put together, we've got a fire department boat house down at 3rd Street that is quite an engineering project. It needs to house that beautiful boat that would help put out fires in marinas along our waterfront. Really would help out if there was, heaven forbid, a fire on Tubbs Hill. We'd seek $225,000 to finish up that project. It's all designed and is really close to going. Talk about supply chain issues. We've been after that for quite a while. You've been a party to a great Atlas Park. We're going to open up a water line, we hope, right along the freeway from Northwest Boulevard down Celtice, and you helped us pull conduit up to Celtice. It would be great to get infrastructure out there so we could put some cameras and have some connectivity to that park. We've got some panels out in this great McEwen that could use some tender loving care and replace them. Adds up pretty quickly on concrete to probably $100,000 in work. We have library stairs over here are significantly oversized for what their use is. And of course, in the wintertime, we have some challenges maintaining those. So we put together a list of items that, if you would so choose, could be lined out as project specific, and we would get them done by the end of September next fiscal year. It's important for you to understand the why, because we weren't anticipating what we have been handed very late in the game, and then we've sought out the confirmation. And we will do our best to get the legislation reworked. But we had not anticipated this change in the way that this great district will close. So I would stand for any questions.
Just a comment or two. I scrolled down on the screen. You can see on the Lake District for the plan to the projected ending fund balance is about $2.3 million. That will decrease a bit when the new levy rates are set by the taxing entities. It's a little rich right now, so it'll go down by something. It won't go down drastically, but it will go down. But I just want to let you know that is the projected remaining funds at the end of the close of the district. So you have 2.3 million-ish, maybe $2 million that would be residual funds.
Thank you.
Troy, what was the total amount that you just discussed there?
No, it's a great question.
$465,000.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay. So that's about a quarter of what we might have, or about an eighth about what we will have left over. Okay.
I have a question, and actually I've wrestled with this from a couple of different viewpoints, but as you kind of the bottom line, we thought, okay, 3 million something that we would realize at the closure of the district that maybe the city would have opportunity to, for some would be, back to taxpayers, and some that we would then spend on city projects, which of course, in my mind, that was the whole point and kind of what was sold with the concept of urban renewal, is that you, in the short term, you don't get to do some stuff, and in the long term, it's going to generate, ongoing enhanced revenues. But anyway, let's just say, using round figures, okay, we would have got 3 million, now maybe 1.2 or something that we'll realize. That difference of roughly 2+ million, I mean, does it vanish into thin air, or is that going to go back to lower taxes, property taxpayer relief that is a good thing, but if I read it right, the state didn't give us the opportunity to make any choice. They're going to make that choice for us. Is that a
Correct.
accurate summary of?
Right, that's where the dollars would flow. So our council has, we have been funding operations with our fund balance as we look to the closure of the district, keeping property taxes down. The thing that I believe council was going to look at was streets. We were going to dedicate dollars to do those large street projects that we spend about $750,000 a year on, or dedicate some dollars for the ongoing park maintenance. I mean, we look at Atlas, what a great project, but there's going to be a few dollars spent on maintaining it. So we are planning on that direction and not to fund a new police officer, because we're taking care of that. So we've been whittling away at capital, and then this comes up, and we all of a sudden look at items of maintenance that we were going to use the dollars from an urban renewal district closure to help pay for.
So from one reluctant property tax expert to another, so if we were to agree to fund these items out of the Lake District prior to its closure, it's going to impact the ending fund balance. The ending fund balance will go back to the taxing entities and doesn't have anything to do with the annual levy rates, correct?
Correct.
Correct. So because of the college is in the same boat because of the taxing legislation, it's impacted the way all this works going forward. But either way, if we fund these or don't fund these, a significant portion of whatever's left of the fund balance in the Lake District could go to the city because of the size of their tax base. Yes? Am I?
Correct, that if nothing were to change and that $2.3 million was realized and it wasn't spent, then we would give it back to the county, and the county would disperse it to the taxing entities based on their fair share as computed by the county. So and the city would be probably a large recipient of a portion of that.
And I do understand that's one-time money, not
One-time
ongoing money. I do get that. I just wanted to clarify that difference.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Troy? Commissioners on Zoom?
Tony, do we want to,
So we would need to close the public hearing.
okay.
So I'll close the public hearing, and then we could have more board discussion.
So is the 3.9 that's on that sheet include the 425 from the city at this point?
That was more than 450.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
The 3.9 in the agency-funded programs, does that include the ask from the city?
No, it does not.
It does not,
If-
okay.
Jeff, if you can page down one more sheet for me, please.
So what we need is a budget amendment?
Well, it's not a budget amendment, it would just be, you're setting the budget tonight.
Okay,
if
so
you
we would just
agree-
include this if we chose to?
Right, if you can include all of the request that was made of you from the city, $465,000, or a portion thereof. So you have that ability now as we set the budget for next year.
And as always, if circumstances were to change, we have no obligation necessarily to spend those funds on those projects. It's just budget money available for us
Right.
to assist
In
the
the
city.
termination plan, we need to do our best to identify projects we're going to spend money on.
Right.
And we'll do our best to complete those projects. But if something were to happen and a project doesn't materialize for some reason, we do not have to spend that money and go back into the fund balance.
Or we could use it for another project if we deemed it appropriate.
If it's identified,
Yeah. Okay.
we'd have to identify it.
Okay, just wanting to make sure I'm crystal clear here.
And is the firehouse within the district? I just don't know the location of it.
The potential boat firehouse is in the Lake District because the Lake District expands out into the water as it was designed back in 1997.
Okay, thank you. Any more board discussion?
I move that we accept the 2022 budget with the inclusion of the additional expenses that was requested.
I'll second that. Chapkus.
Then we need a roll call.
Is there any more
One
discussion?
second here, let me catch up with you. Mandel?
Yes.
Whitmire?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Metz?
Yes.
Chapkus?
Yes.
Arman?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
All right, approved. So moving forward, reports, Parking Commission, Commissioner Jordan.
Okay, Madam Chairman. So, overall, our parking revenues are looking pretty good. I'll just give you a quick rundown here. Right now, our 2021 revenue through July of this year is $842,000 in round numbers. Last year in 2020, our total revenue was $967,000. So we think we're going to exceed last year's revenue by quite a bit by the time our fiscal year ends at the end of September. The biggest year in parking so far was $1,004,000 back in 2019 before COVID. Then we were down about $40-some thousand in 2020. But I think we'll probably be having our biggest revenue year so far by the end of our fiscal year in September. Those permits for residents, city residents, there's 229 permits, and the county residents have 89 permits. Let's see, 256 monthly permits at McEwen, and 306 at the Coeur d'Alene Avenue Garage. So that's my report.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Commissioner Jordan? All right, moving on to Alice RFP Committee, Areas 3 and 4 award recommendation.
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and take the lead on that. Jeff, could you put up my graphic depicting the Atlas project area, please? It's the RFP number 3 one. Thank you. Just as a visual background for the areas that we had pertaining to this agenda item. So just to kind of give an overview of the process that we went through, we advertised an RFP for these areas. We subdivide them into 4 subsections, 3A, 3B, 4A, and 4B, and we solicited proposals. There's a committee group that is, he's going to give me my mouse, isn't he? I bet he is. There's your mouse. He's tired of me bugging him. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So a committee has been established quite a few months ago to deal with these RFPs, and those committee members are Commissioner Metz from Ignite CDA, Commissioner Mandel from Ignite CDA, myself, Danielle Quaid, Christy Wood from the City of Coeur d'Alene, Troy Tymason from the City of Coeur d'Alene, Hillary Anderson from the City of Coeur d'Alene, Don Vahey from GGLO Architects, Phil Boyd from Welch Comer, Ben Morton, and Matt Anderson from Heartland. That's the committee that kind of reviews these RFPs. For this RFP, we had 6 development teams propose. We had proposals submitted by Architera Homes, and they were interested in all 4 areas that you see up there, areas 3A, 3B, 4A, and 4B. We had a proposal from Rivers Fest LLC. They were interested in only areas 3A and 3B. We had a submittal from Bluegrass Development. They were interested in area 3B only. We had a submittal from Harmony Homes. They were interested in areas 3B and 4B only. A proposal was submitted by Story Communities. They were interested in all areas, 3A, 3B, 4A, and 4B. And we had a proposal submitted by Toll Brothers, interested in all areas 3A, 3B, 4A, and 4B. So the committee looked at these proposals, they looked at all the metrics associated with these proposals, and went through the proposal scoring analysis based on the scoring matrix that was contained in the RFP. So score points total 200 points, and they were divided as follows. So for development experience, there was an award of 50 points maximum. For development concept and support for development vision, there was 75 points maximum, and purchase price was 75 points maximum, totaling 200 points. So the committee worked through all these proposals, and they came up with a score ranking as follows. So Toll Brothers came out as number 1, Arcatera Homes number 2, Riverfest LLC number 3, Story Partners number 4, Bluegrass Development number 5, and Harmony Homes number 6. With that said, the Atlas Project Scoring Committee recommends to the Ignite CDA Board to award areas 3 and 4 to Toll Brothers. And Commissioner Metz and myself will stand, and Ms. Quaid will stand for any questions you might have. In short times.
I do have to say there was some strong proposals with some competitive pricing, so it was a good round of RFPs, or of proposals.
I think the steering committee did a great job. I reviewed this closely. It looks like you really did your homework. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's significant to get a national level company like Toll Brothers coming in here and developing.
Agreed.
I think they've been in Boise and Seattle for a while, so I think it's significant that they're coming into our project.
Yeah, we think it will kind of create some diversity in the project too.
Right.
So we would look for a motion from the board if the board accepts that recommendation from the committee.
So you need a motion, or?
I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the RFP Review Committee for the Atlas Projects 3 and 4.
Excuse me, I'll second that. I jumped the gun on you.
You're all right.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So now Executive Director's Report, Atlas Project Update.
Yeah, we just have one item left under the report, and that is to invite our friend, Mr. Phil Boyd, to give us an update on the Atlas project.
Thank you, Tony. Good afternoon, board. Maybe Jeff, if you don't mind, one more time. Put my presentation up. I don't want to mess it up. Bottom left there. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Jeff. Just a little update. It will go relatively quickly. You guys are oriented already to areas 3 and 4. I'm going to give you a little bit of construction update, then also talk about some upcoming expenditures and where we're at. Project status, the raised intersections supposed to start next week. You've heard a little bit already about supply chain issues. There's also a cement supply chain issue, which creates a concrete supply chain issue, which impacts the concrete raised intersections. It's not a critical path element. So the streets are currently closed, so it's not really impacting anything. We just want to get it done just to close out phase 1. So Le Riviere, we're pushing on Le Riviere, and he has indicated he's going to try to get on them next week. The shared use path, I'll talk a little bit about that, but there's an agreement in principle with the city on that. And then the Area 8 service relocation and the alley for Riverfest, which I'll show you a picture of to orient you to it. So the raised intersections are these 4 locations, and so those are currently just sitting there at subgrade, and Le Riviere should start on those next week. The shared use path, just to refresh the board's memory, it used to run along Atlas Road, but by taking the opportunity to relocate it on the west side of Area 12 and the portion of it on the east side of River's Edge property, we were able to create some additional parking in here and make a dedicated shared use path so it doesn't cross the driveways here. And so the board agreed to fund that. We've been working with the city, and Mike Gridley's been great about taking point on this and working with River's Edge, Lance Douglas, to kind of nurse that along. And now that we've got an agreement in principle, we'll actually start on the design. We hadn't actually started on the design because we didn't want to spend that money until we kind of had a full agreement there. So we're moving forward on that. And then the Area 8 reconfiguration, just to refresh the board's memory, this is what Area 8 looked like when it was put out in the RFP. Riverfest, which is John and Ann Butler, had came in and said, gosh, can we do single family here and townhomes on the upper part and put an alley through there, which was one of the configurations in the development standards. the board had decided to put the RFP out under that configuration, so it was platted that way. The water and sewer services were installed that way. And so the Butlers are funding construction of the alley and relocation of those services that you see right there. So they're actually funding that, so it's not going to have a cost impact to the agency. So that's moving along. And I'll talk, the phases have changed and kind of continue to morph a little bit, and they're morphing to achieve economies of scale on certain things. And so right now we're working on phase 2A and phase 2B. The contract you're going to see, the proposed contract amendment that you're going to see come forward in September will build all the infrastructure that you see down here, but do all the earthwork in 2A and 2B, just because it makes more sense to do that. So it will be a pretty large number. We're still working on fine tuning, and when I say fine tuning, negotiating some of the terms with La Riviere, the unit prices on that work, and the schedule when it will get done. The reason that we're pushing hard to get the infrastructure down here is because Area 5 and then the two you just talked about, 3 and 4 here, we were waiting for this RFP to open so we could figure out exactly how those lots should be platted. So we just plat them once and don't have to replat them. As I mentioned earlier, Area 8 here, because the Butlers wanted to reconfigure that, we had to replat that property. Again, they funded that. Replat it. Bless you.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay. So I just wanted to, I just wanted to kind of let the board know, it doesn't really impact, for your standpoint, but if sometimes we're moving the phases around a little bit for our purposes to make sure we're achieving economy of scales. I wanted to give the board just a refresher on where we're at kind of cost-wise. When we originally did the financial feasibility model, we estimated the infrastructure improvements at $16 million. We updated the model in March of 2021 when the triangle parcel was in play and the council was trying to decide what to do with that. At that time, we went back and re-estimated the improvements, and we were at $14.5 million. So even with the current escalation in construction costs, we came down a little bit, and some of that is just because we know more than we did then. There's still some uncertainty in Mount Hink. We're not touching Mount Hink in a substantial way as part of this project, but we are remediating Pit 1 and Pit 2 in these estimates here. Phase 1 is contracted, and I'm anticipating we might end up about $5 million on Phase 1. So that's kind of over budget, but that's because we shoved some of Phase 2 into Phase 1, which goes back to my earlier point that we're shifting some of it around. We anticipate our objective, and Tony's objective to me is, we have to stay here. This is our objective, is to stay within that $14.5 million budget as we move forward. If that starts to change, we would be back to the board with an explanation saying, gosh, asphalt went off the charts and everything's going crazy. But we anticipate that we should be within those, certainly in Phase 1 and Phase 2. We would be in these budgets that we're seeing here. So I just wanted to give the board that kind of reference point. And then proposed contract amendments you'll see coming forward in September, and you'll get a memo ahead of this with lots of explanation in it because there's going to be big numbers in it, and I want the board to feel comfortable with what they're looking at. We've talked about street side irrigation and landscaping. The board had looked at a couple of different scenarios there. That contract will be coming forward on Phase 1 for the street side improvements there. The Phase 2A infrastructure and the 2A and 2B earthwork will be coming forward as well. The entry monuments, La Riviere is working through estimating those, and we're kind of doing a little bit of a design build thing on it where La Riviere looks at it and, gee, can we tweak this to make it more economical? We'll be bringing forward construction phase services that match this effort here, and then development management services, because our current effort kind of ran out in August. The last time we had worked it out with you guys, we were kind of running through this RFP. So that's kind of running out here, or is running out in August. So all 5 of those are proposed to come forward assuming we can get things worked out and negotiated with La Riviera on those things. So that is my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Answer any questions.
Any questions for Phil?
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
All right. Time for board commissioner comments. Are there any? Anybody on Zoom have any comments? Seeing
None,
none?
thank you for asking.
Yeah, I can try and think of
None
some.
for me, thank you.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.